Jon, it has, some people would say it was a quiet summer, but for you, I think anything but. Can you fill us in on how you filled in your management team in basketball operations and bring us up to speed on that, because there are a lot of new faces here.
Sure. Yeah. You know, we jumped right in after I got hired, and we started with a draft. We're really excited with our draft, dug into free agency. And throughout that process, obviously doing all of our strategic meetings as a staff with the group that we had, but trying to identify how we wanted to build out a staff going forward from there. So was able to hire Ryan Hoover, VP of Scouting, Dave Dean we promoted to be the GM of the Herd and VP of Basketball Operations, guys like David Mintzberg and Matt Bolero, a lot of different groups of guys that we brought in. And the goal was to bring high energy, creative, intelligent people into this group that really work the way that we want to work in strategy and execute the plan that we have here. So it was a great summer. It's
a young group, Jon. I think everyone knows that. How do you blend experience and youth and the enthusiasm and all of that goes into a cohesive whole?
Yeah, so two people that I mentioned just previously, we hired Milt Newton as our assistant GM, which is a really key piece for that. Milt's got tons of experience in the league. As a player, as a coach, has worked with the league office, was a general manager of the Minnesota Timberwolves. So he has vast basketball experiences, which are really helpful, and he's a great person that fits our group. And then Dave Babcock is someone who I really valued on our staff from before with his scouting experiences, his knowledge, and Dave's a key part of our staff, and so we were trying to bridge that gap. The other thing is, Jim, although we're young, guys that I've mentioned all have 10 plus years of experience in this league. Ryan Hoover's been in this league for 15 years, Dave Dean for 17, myself for 13. Matt Bolero, Dave Mintzberg. We're young, but we have a lot of experience, and so we're trying to bring all those things together and help the Bucks move forward.
A lot of people looking for that great opportunity, and it has come in Milwaukee. Jason, obviously a lot of expectations for the team this year, and I think people say the East might not be what it was. They're looking at that as further expectation. Can you let your team even think about that, or do you keep them online and say, we have to take care of ourselves and our business and let the chips fall?
Yeah, I think when you talk about expectations, that's just part of the gig. And for us, we've worked extremely hard to put ourselves in this position of the expectations. But being the second youngest team in the league, we still have to take steps in the right direction. And that's, being accountable, playing hard, protecting your teammates, and having fun. And so if we can do those things, that'll take care of the expectations. But for us, it's just to come out and have a good training camp, take one day at a time, and then get ready for Boston when we open up in Boston.
We talked about, with the owners who were up here a moment ago, we talked about the continuity that we're starting to see in Milwaukee. Maybe each of you could comment on that from your perspective. There's a little bit of continuity as we move into this season, the 50th of Bucks basketball.
Yeah, well, John's been here the longest, right? So
that's true.
When you talk, and Dave Dean. So when you talk about continuity, it starts at the top. And Dave Dean and Jon Horst have been here. You talk about John Henson being the longest Buck. You talk about this young group being together for the last 3 years. And so when you talk about continuity, hopefully it can give us the advantage. There's a new situation with training camp being shorter. There's a little bit more time of rest in between games, a little bit more practice time maybe. But this is a great opportunity for us to build on what we ended the season. Even though it was a bad taste in our mouth losing to Toronto, this is something that we can build on going forward. And hopefully we can, again, our goal is to make the playoffs and do better, hopefully, in the playoffs. But we got to, before we do that, we got to play the 82 games. And we got to get better than last year. But it starts with those guys in that locker room, and they've all had a great summer. And they want to win, and they're starting to learn how to win. So hopefully as a coach, I can put those guys in a position to be successful.
And Jon, the activity of the summer indicates that you are a believer in roster continuity as well.
Yeah, so it's intentional, right? It's not like we didn't turn over every stone, didn't work, didn't make our calls, didn't investigate every opportunity that we could to make this team better. And that's the things that we're going to constantly do from my seat and my group. We're going to strategically explore those things to constantly try to get better. But we saw a team that was, youngest or second youngest in the league last year. We started 2 rookies in the playoffs, had a really competitive playoff series with Toronto. Knew we were going to come into this year with a top 10 type player on our team with a still extremely young core. and said, why would we change this, right? So one of the main things that we talked about is Tony Snell, how he fit our team, bring Tony back. Jason Terry, what he means to us as a veteran and presence on a young team, bring him back. So really we've changed our teams through draft. We've added guys that we think fit our roster, and that's what you're going to see. That's the strategic plan, is to continue to put pieces that fit our roster the way that we're built, and just develop organically and over time, and hopefully continue to compete for, get better and compete for championships.
All right, thank you both. We'll open it to the floor.
Any lingering concerns with Giannis's knee and whether it's going to limit him in training camp? And then two, just obviously what's the next step for Giannis here?
So I'll answer the first one. No concerns with his knee. There was an issue, obviously a real issue, but it was a wear and tear issue. We just needed him to be off of his knee to get the appropriate rehab and the appropriate rest, and that was best suited here in Milwaukee. And so that's taken place. He's rehabbed extremely hard, extremely well, and there'll be no setbacks for training camp as we go into it.
Yeah, I think just to second that, he's ready to go. I think when we look at training camp, there's going to be time and place for not just Giannis, but some guys to not participate in something. But for the big picture, Giannis is ready to go. He's set his goals extremely high, and we're excited.
Hey guys, Reed Forgrave with CBSSports.com. I'm curious, each of you in your role as GM and coach, how you balance the temptation to go for it now versus the patience. I think that seems like a kind of a central theme with this organization right now.
Yeah, I think it's pretty simple, actually. Have a great partner, right? So Jason and I, first of all, a relationship started before I had this position. Like Jason said, I've been here with the organization. We've been here his entire time. And I think we've built a relationship over the last 3 or 4 years, and really doing even more so now. So, us talking about it every day, talking about the right time to make a move, it's not to be adverse to making a move, it's to do it strategically and at the right time that fits this team, that fits the age curve of this team, that fits what we need. And so we're going to constantly talk about those things, look at those things, be on the same page. And as long as we do that, I truly believe that we'll make the right decisions.
Well, I think to second that again, you talk about the process, understanding we're a young group, and internally we got to get better. And Jon has done everything from the draft to free agency, trying to find a way to get the team better. And that's the partnership of communicating, looking to see what the team needs. And at some point, we're going to have to make that decision. Is it the time right to now, go over the tax? Or is it, still, hey, keep developing and try to find a way to get as high or as far in the playoffs as possible with the group you have?
Jason, this question is specifically for you. Doug Russell with WTMJ. Last year, it was a season kind of ups and downs, I guess, after the calendar turned. You lost 10 out of 11 at one point and then had a record-setting March. Specifically as it concerns Jason Terry, someone who you played with, played against, a contemporary in no small measure of yours during your playing career, how important was it to have that veteran peer in that locker room for some of those ups and downs?
It's key. When you look at the teams that are consistent, they're a lot older. And to have a player like Jason Terry, to understand during a championship year there's going to be a roller coaster. The marathon is never smooth. No matter how talented your team, there's always going to be a down period. There's always going to be an up, and it's the good teams know how to handle the down. And I thought for our group being young and kind of new, because we had a lot of new faces, they listened to not just the coaches but to each other. And Jason Terry played a big part of that.
Lance Allen from WTMJ. For both of you guys, continuity was key. But obviously, you did bring back Jason Terry, and then you brought in Joel Anthony and Kendall Marshall and Gerald Green. Is part of that just trying to basically get more leadership in the locker room? Is that something that you looked at to say, okay, to take the next step and to get to a championship, that's what we need, is a little more veteran voices, so to speak? Yeah,
I think we want the most talented training camp roster that you can have. With veteran guys who can play and who can influence the younger guys of showing them how to work and what it really means to work. And so when you talk about the guys that we brought in, we feel that they fit the DNA of the Bucks and that they can help us during training camp.
Yeah, Lance, the big thing with like the talent that you just mentioned, right? So Brandon Rush, Gerald Green, Kendall Marshall, Joel Anthony, James Young, those guys, those are our training camp guys, right? That's roster spot 15 through 20. So one of those guys is going to have a chance to make our roster, or Gary Payton's, I'm sorry, the other guy to throw in there. One of those guys are going to have a chance to make our roster. One of the reasons we're able to do that is exercise patience. We had a plan, we had a strategy going into free agency, understanding that the market was really tight, and we remained patient throughout it, kept a spot open very strategically, knowing that we had a need, and try to find the best player we can with the most flexibility that we possibly could. So we're going to have the opportunity to have one of those players contribute to the Milwaukee Bucks roster on kind of a minimal contract, which would be a great opportunity for us.
Eric Name, ESPN Milwaukee over here. Jason, so often on Media Day we ask players, how have you improved? What did you work on over the summer? Entering your 5th season as an NBA coach, how do you feel you've improved since the time you started, and how do you try to improve?
Well, I think, again, just always reflecting on the past. You know, how can I get better as a coach? Most of the time having the wrong person sitting out, you know, is a big way to improve. Calling the wrong play. But I think, you know, for me, it's just how can I get better? You know, one is communicating with my guys, you know, understanding, helping them, you know, let them know where they stand, and also what they need to work on. But also, we always talk about what they can work on, but also work on the things that you're good at, and you know, stay in that role, because everybody wants to do better and always works on a weakness, but also don't forget to work on your strengths. And so, for me as a coach, again, patience. You know, last year when things were going bad, we could have easily just folded tent, but we stayed the course, we kept working, and I thought as a group, we all got better. And you got to go through those experiences, good and bad, to get better. And so for me this summer was learning from the experiences, not just the good in March, because March is great. Everybody wish that October, November, December is like March, but it's not. That's just a fact. And but when things are tough, how do we get better, right? We're going to have to work in Jabari in February, right? And if things are going good or bad, like how does that, you know, mess with the team? And so we got to be prepared for that.
Matt Velasquez, Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. Jason just mentioned Jabari. Obviously, the franchise has a huge decision when it comes to his contract and the ability to extend him. How do you guys approach that, and where are you at this point in those discussions?
Sure. Well, first off, Jabari, I think Jason and I agree. I know Jason and I agree. We're extremely proud of where he's at right now. No one has worked harder in his rehab process than what he's done, and you know, he's hit every mark in the schedule that Troy and Suki have for him. He's on track. He's looking stronger, you know, healthier than he ever has, and we truly believe he's going to come back that way. In terms of the contract, so we have a decision to make by the middle of October, basically October 16th, and you know, the injury part of it is a factor in the discussions. Of course, we're having great discussions with his representative. We're going to continue to work through that, and hopefully the goal is to come to an extension agreement. If we don't, we want to be in a place where we can have the same type of productive conversations again as a restricted free agent with a player who we value significantly in our franchise.
Jon, this question is for you. You're a couple months on the job now. Have there been any surprises, and what have the last couple of months been like for you as you fill out your team?
No real surprises. The last couple months have been extremely busy, extremely rewarding. You know, thankful for the opportunity and really blessed to be able to work with a great group of guys that we have. You know, maybe not a surprise, but I really have enjoyed spending time, you know, our group and Jason's group, just, you know, down here when we're having open gyms, just kind of be down on the court around each other, you know, having a conversation with Coach Foster, conversation with Coach Prunty, you know, stopping in with Sean Sweeney in the locker room, just that interaction. I wouldn't necessarily call it a surprise, but that's been really rewarding and really productive, and I think it's really great for the environment and the culture that, you know, the owners sat up here and talked about, that really winning culture. That's a big piece of it, you know, all of us being on the same page as well, and so that's been a great piece.
Jon, what went into the decision to, Tom Oates, Wisconsin State Journal, what went into the decision to release Bronson Koenig, especially after he'd been around for most of the summer?
Yeah, Tom, so Bronson was one of the guys that we identified right after the draft, kind of a pick 61. So as we went into the strategy of kind of the wild, wild west of two-ways, you know, we looked at it and said, how do we best utilize these two-ways? And understanding what the risk, the actual financial risk, was pretty minimal. And so We identified him as a pick 61 guy, someone that had the Wisconsin ties, someone that we thought could be valuable for the G League franchise, and put him on a two-way. Let him earn his time in the summer league, spent time with us in the summer league, played well, spent time here in the summer. And ultimately, the decision came down to is we've evaluated the potential to use a two-way to help the Bucks roster now while developing a guy. We think there's better options out there. So, Bronson, I think, has a bright future in professional basketball, and one of those options that he could have would be playing with Wisconsin Herd. That's still something we're investigating and working through. But at this time, we thought we could better utilize the two-way for someone to help our roster immediately.
What kind of offseason did Thon Maker have, and sort of what did you want to see him sort of improve on coming into camp, and then looking forward again, what role you envision for him?
Yeah, I think Thon, again, like everyone, has had a great summer. He's put on some weight. Again, working on his weakness, or not his weakness, but just because he's young, we needed him to get stronger, and so he did that for us this summer. So when you see him, he's bigger. Shooting the ball extremely well for us. Needs to get, he's been in the weight room. So again, the plan that we set out for him, he's achieved. And so now it's, can he build on last season? Can he still have that effect that he helped us with his energy and his shooting, and then also adding his rebounding and his block shots, and also learning how to stay on the floor with the foul trouble that he got into last year, just being a rookie, and I think as time goes on, he's going to be comfortable playing more minutes. But again, when you look at him, he's definitely gotten stronger and bigger, which we've asked him to do.
Jason, since you've been here, you've employed that aggressive defensive strategy, and we saw it really wreak havoc at the start of your tenure, and it's gone down a little bit since. Do you think that strategy can be successful, and do you plan on employing it again this season?
Yeah, I think when you look at the makeup of our team, the teams that have won championships play both ends. Golden State and Cleveland, they know how to play. They're older teams. Again, for us, there's a lot of switching going on in the league, so maybe we look at doing that a little bit more. With our personnel, we can switch 1 through 5 pretty much. But we're going to continue to be aggressive on the defensive end, and again, continuity helps with that, because guys know what to expect. And I think, not saying this is a positive, they know how to read. They're being able to read the situation, which will lead to deflections and steals, and hopefully give us the opportunity at easier layups or more open threes.
Mike Wendland, WDX Radio. This is more for Jason. You have two guys who appear to have very similar skill sets with Tony and Chris, both as the wings who can play anywhere and really shoot the three. How do you plan on having those guys kind of coexist on the floor together, or maybe spelling each other as the season goes along?
Yeah, I think Chris and Tony did a great job. We bring Chris back in the middle of the year, and Tony was playing at a very high level for us, and they are very similar. And I think that benefits Giannis. Being able to have guys who can shoot gives him more space on the floor. Being able to have defensively, Chris and Tony know how to play defense, so that helps us. So when we have two guys that are very similar, I think both ends will be productive. And then also having one on the floor at all times is something that we can also look at. Chris being able to do both, and then Tony being able to do both. The one thing we got to get those two guys to do is stop trailing. We got to get one of those guys to catch Giannis, and we'll work on that in training camp to see if that happens.
Jason, you've always been of the mind that everybody gets a chance to play at some point. Everybody's going to get in there and be in the rotation. How is that affected by the more time in the schedule and having more rest and more practice time? Are you able to kind of feed guys more minutes, or do you still spread it around as much?
Yeah, this is going to be new, I think, to everybody. With the shortened training camp and now more time in between games. So for us, I don't think early on nothing changes. We're going to get everybody, time. Everybody has the right to play by working hard. But we want everybody to be prepared, because you never know with injury. Someone goes down. We need someone to step in and be ready. So my thought is always, have all guys on deck, and hopefully that Johns of the world and Mirza or DJ rookies, they have to be ready. And so, especially early on, since it is a long marathon, and the deeper we are, we feel we have that advantage, hopefully, going into the season.
Jason, also for you, Stephen Watson from WISN. As a former star player yourself, you've had the platform or the opportunity on giving your platform to share your thoughts. What are your thoughts on kind of what Steph Curry and some of the other NBA players have been saying about Trump's recent comments?
Yeah, I think it's, the platform for anyone, not just professional athletes, but everybody would love to hear their voice. And this is a time of need where we need to hear voices, and then also listen, and then come up with a game plan of what we're going to do. But I think for our organization, we encourage our players to talk. We don't look at them just as basketball players or athletes. They are human, and they do have feelings. As much as they are 7 feet tall, they do have feelings. And it's not just a platform to speak and not to be heard or be right or wrong, but just to give their point of view. And that's what this country was built on, and it shouldn't be any different.
JP Cadorn with Spectrum Sports. John, for you, how do you feel about the competitiveness in the league overall? Nationally, the perspective is probably it's Golden State, Cleveland, like maybe Houston, and then everybody else. I'm sure you don't feel that way. You'd like to be up there, but how do you feel the competitiveness of the league overall is going to play out?
I think, first of all, I think that there's truth to that, right? You've got, Cleveland and Golden State playing in the last, is it 3 or 4 finals, consecutive finals? Houston is loaded up. Oklahoma City is loaded up. You could argue that there's an arms race, but there's a piece of this too of the young up-and-coming teams. In Boston trying to build a group around young guys and putting the right pieces. Us trying to build a group around young guys, putting the right pieces. You see Minnesota, I think, is going to have some relevance this year. And so there is a change into the guard, and there's new teams kind of trying to ascend to those heights, and we're happy to be part and lucky to be part of that group that's kind of building toward that. But I do think like there is some truth that the prognosticators are probably right at the top of the league. It probably is what it is, but that doesn't mean that we're not going to play hard. We're not going to compete for that. Play the continuity card, brought our group back. We think we can really advance and really challenge teams.
This one's for both of you. Jason, I know as the season ended, you were fond of saying, well, if all those other crazy seasons happen, if Westbrook's triple if that doesn't happen, Giannis had an MVP season in a normal year. Is that the expectation for both of you for him this season?
I think you start, and not starting over, but you would love to build on what he did last year. And just so we all understand, his journey, as I said last year, just was starting, and we all should hitch on and enjoy this ride. And so this season is no different. He's 22 years old. We're asking him to be himself, no one else, to go out and have fun, play the game at a very high level. And we're here as coaches and teammates to help you achieve what you want, and he'll tell you what his goals are. But, I think the big thing is for him to have fun. He's put in the work this summer to get better, and now it's just a matter of going out there and playing. And if he can come anywhere close to what he did last year, then he'll be in the talks of MVP. What Westbrook and those guys did last year was, off the chart basketball-wise, stat-wise, and his stats were right there, and so if we said we'll all sign up for that, and hopefully that gets us, close to 50 wins.
Eric, the other thing, and not just to blow up Jason because he's sitting here, but Giannis has a really great roadmap and mentor, right? Someone that's talking to him every day, someone that's kind of lived through being a great player, playing for great teams. And Giannis at 22 years old, one of the things that he's learning as he matures is that his teammates need him, right? Like, so he needs to serve them every day. And if he does that, they're going to serve him back because he needs them also. And because if we win, he'll be in MVP conversations, right? It's all about winning. So as good as the stats are, we start winning at a high level, he can get to that. And he can't do that on his own. And so, Jason talks to him about that all the time. Giannis is very receptive, and that's a huge part of his maturation and growth.
Is it simple and accurate to say his future and greatness is determined totally by his ability to improve his outside shot?
I would say no. He's already great, and for some would say he doesn't shoot it well. We all think he does shoot it well because he does so many other things great. We try to nitpick at things that people can't do, instead of supporting what they can do. And at the end of the day, he's learning how to win at the highest level. And some of the greatest players that have played this game couldn't do something. There was never a player who could do it all. And so if he's the first to do it all, then I'm happy I'm on his side.
As Chris comes back from this injury, 2 years ago he was flirting with 20 points, 3 or 4 assists. And we always have the conversation, a second banana, can that guy be the number 2 guy on a championship team? Do you think that can be what Chris's potential serves?
I think Chris is, I don't want to say he's the number 2 guy. I think he's right there as your 1A, 1B. There's going to be nights where Giannis might be struggling. Chris, is a great compliment. Giannis is a great compliment to him. He's a great compliment to each other. So they're kind of married together. And as you can see, they do play well. The second half of the season, they take off. And I think Chris is a great security blanket because he never gets rattled. For you guys that have been around him, games on the line, you all feel comfortable that he's going to get a good shot. He doesn't panic. And I think that can help Giannis, coming down the stretch, just keeping his calmness and his awareness. And so I don't want to call him the second fiddle because there's nights where we lean on him more than we lean on Giannis. And so he's a leader. And if we both put those guys in that one category, I think they both complement each other well. I hate to say that he's the 2 guy or Giannis is the 2 guy. I think they both need each other.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.